Welcome back to Sexy Mom Abundant Life, everyone. There is so much I want to tell you about non-judgment and allowance. And I'm like, the time is going so quickly. So I told you I would tell you this fun story and then do an exercise that I just love, super quick and simple to expand into the space of non-judgment. And when we're in that space of non-judgment, things bother us less, way less. In fact, I used to do this exercise in my classes, and now it's not effective anymore because I actually can't do it, and I'll explain what it is. So I used to do this exercise, which I'm not going to have you do. I'm going to teach you a really fun, different one that you can do on your own. In which other people would judge me. Like the members of the class would judge me. And in one position, I would put up barriers and defenses to their judgment. And so I'd just not let it in. It's not okay. I'm not doing, why would you judge that? Having barriers and defenses. And then we would do round 2. And this was they would each last 2 minutes, not a long time, a minute or 2. And then we'd do round 2 in which I just drop all barriers and defenses and be an allowance of their judgments. So that would mean I see every one of their judgments of me as just an interesting point of view. It has more to do with their story than it actually has to do with me. More to do with their story than it has to do with me. Okay? So I mentioned early on, actually this is the direction I'd like to go for a moment, that judgment is one of the biggest ways people use to control you. Okay? So if I said to you, why would you wear that? Right? Then you're going to be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't wear this, if you're making my judgment real. Okay? However, that's just a story. That's not a good thing to wear. Okay? So judgment, when people are judging you, it's more about them than it is about you. I always kind of say, lift you up out of the situation and plop someone else in there. They would be going through that experience too. Person A's story that you shouldn't be doing something is more about them. Is more about person A than it is about you, the recipient of their judgment. All right. So again, pick you up out, put someone else in your spot. Person A would still be judging. Okay? It's not about you. So let's go to this. If you've ever seen the movie The Help, or read the book, and I apologize, I did a long, long time ago, so I'm not going to tell exactly the fruitful details, but enough to get the story across. The essentially servant woman creates a pie, and she usually creates these amazing chocolate pies, really fabulous chocolate pies. And this time she's so pissed off that she's added a special ingredient, which happens to be poop. Okay, so now it's a poop and chocolate pie. So picture this as a demonstration of allowance. Okay, someone gives you a poop pie of judgment. Are you going to eat it? Eating it would mean you've made it real and true and relevant to you, right? Yeah, you're right. Okay? You're right. Your judgment's right. I am a terrible singer. You know how many people I come across who were told that when they were kids? 6 years old? They still think, at 56 that they're still a terrible singer. I'm like, well, you could change that, right? If you are, you can actually change that. Okay. So they've eaten the judgment. They've made it real. They've said, this is true. Okay. So that would be aligning with the judgment. Resisting the judgment, saying, you're wrong. That's not true. Okay. would be like throwing the pie back in her face. All right, you receive the poop pie, you throw it back in their face. You say, "You're a jerk. Why would you make this for me?" Whatever it is, like now you have resistance, and you know what that energy feels like. You know what that energy of reaction feels like. It doesn't feel good, right? That's indicative that you're in judgment. Okay. Now, then what do you do? If you don't eat the poop pie, but you don't throw it back at the person, what do? Okay, how can I use this? You just take it and put it in your garden. You don't make it relevant. You don't make it about you. What can I use this for? You just take it and put it where it goes. Right? Not making it significant. Interesting point of view. They have that judgment about me. Oh, we could even do that. That'd be kind of fun. All right, so I'm just going to tell my mean story on YouTube. You can hop on over to meetkathywilliams.com. Oh, no. Well, there's the YouTube link there, too, so that's the easiest way, I guess. But YouTube is Kathy Williams Public Figure, and I'll do the story about this person who thought that their boyfriend was super nice when it was really not that way, and it's a fascinating story. All right, but I'd prefer to do this right now to give you an experience of making someone else's judgment not mean anything about you. Okay? So when I do this when I did what I told you with classes, in which they spend a minute judging me and then a minute or two when I'm in the defensive position and then when I have no defenses, then we talk about it afterwards. And what ends up happening is they say, when you were defensive, it was easier to judge you, right? And I don't tell them what role I'm taking before we do the exercise. So they judge me and then judge me again. And then I say, okay, now when was I in the space of allowance? And pretty much they can always tell. And the reason is it's much harder to find things to judge when you are in the space of interesting point of view. When you are in the space where, yeah, you can have that story and it's okay. You can have that story about me and it's okay. Okay? And I'm not judging them for the judgment, essentially. So, interesting point of view. We did an exercise in part 2 of the show of interesting point of view. Now we can apply it to somebody else's judgment. So think of a judgment you've received from someone that kind of touched you. Like, I don't like that. And we're going to find a space of allowance, or as much allowance as we can in this moment for that. So think of that judgment. Interesting point of view. They have that point of view. Interesting point of view. I don't like that. Interesting point of view. I have my point of view about their point of view. Interesting point of view. So for every thought you have about this, interesting point of view. Interesting point of view. That hurt me. Interesting point of view. 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 They shouldn't have said that. Interesting point of view. Maybe I should have been different. Interesting point of view. They have their point of view. Interesting point of view. I have my point of view about their point of view. Interesting 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 point of view. And you may have to interesting point of view it, as a friend of mine says, to death. To keep going and keep going and keep going, and that's okay. I know a woman who at one point had in her phone, it was IPOV mom. Okay? That reminded her that every time her mom got on the phone, I need to just remember to be in the space of interesting point of view. It opens up a freedom. It opens up a possibility, which is why when I was that space in the exercise in my class, people really couldn't find that much to judge. And when they did, it was usually positive judgments. One woman said, it was so much easier to judge you when you were in allowance. She's such a good mom. She's so pretty. She has a great sense of style, right? They can find those positive judgments a lot easier than the negative ones when you really have no point of view. And you get to recognize that even those, sometimes those are awareness. Sometimes it's a judgment, the positive things too. And we even modify ourselves. Like, oh, if someone said, Kathy's such a nice person, right? Then I might modify my behavior to try to look and act nice to meet their expectation. Oh, Kathy's such a responsible person, right? Even that judgment, right? If I'm not in allowance of it, I may either resist it, probably not. I'm more likely to align and agree with it. And say, okay, now I have to take the responsible action, right? And then judge all my behaviors to see, well, which is responsible? Is this more responsible than that? Is that responsible? Is that not? Is that irresponsible? Each judgment we have takes all these other judgments, and then it's a dance of judgment instead of, okay, interesting point of view. I don't need to resist. I don't need to align. I can float down the river without going to either polarity and collecting rocks, like I talked about in the first part of the show. So let's do what might be my favorite exercise that has to do with allowance. And there are a lot more. If you like this, we're actually going to do 5 days of energetic exercises for 5 days of energetic practices for getting out of judgment of self, of projects, of your past, so there are all these different categories we're going to do exercises for. And you can find that at, meetkathywilliams.com. Right? meetkathywilliams.com/upcoming is where all the upcoming stuff. And that's just 5 half hours, 20 minutes to half hours online where we connect and do an exercise and explore that exercise and have questions about it at the end of September. That is. All right, so go ahead, and if you're in a space where you can, it's not necessary to close your eyes, but it can be really nice too. Okay? And sense your body. And sense the space around your body. And let's actually choose a judgment you have of yourself, a small one, okay? Don't go to the biggest one. We're taking baby steps here. Okay? A small judgment you have about yourself, like, oh, geez, I should have done this differently. In doing this exercise, you do not need to find a judgment first. But we're going to do it that way just because it's fun. Now expand your awareness out to fill the room so you're aware of all the walls, the floor, and the ceiling. Now expand your awareness out into your town or countryside. Expanding out throughout the country, across the ocean. Downward, upward, and outward until you're bigger than the planet. And keep going. And keep going. And keep going. And keep going. Bigger across the galaxy. Okay, so first the solar system, then the galaxy, just expanding. And as you expand, what's happened to the judgment? Does it sort of dissipate? When you're expansive, no point of view can stick you. You're spacious. So super fast. When you receive a judgment of yourself, from yourself, from someone else, expand out. See what changes. If it's truly real, it will stay. If it's not, it'll dissipate. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to Sexy Mom Abundant Life. I'm here on IOM.FM every Thursday, 2 p.m. Pacific, and always on YouTube. I'm always there. And at meetkathywilliams.com. Meet Kathy with a K, Williams with an S.com. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. And if you can't wait a week, visit the archives on my site or on iom.fm, and I'll be back next week. Thanks a bunch. Have a non-judgment filled week. Aloha.